Welcome to the Wellness Amazon podcast. This is a podcast for highly sensitive people, people that have high intuition and are just in tune with themselves and the outer world. Come and listen to multiple different high spectrum subjects and just peek behind the curtain. But I warn you, once you peek behind the curtain, you can never go back. Have fun. Enjoy. Hey, welcome everybody to the newest episode of the Wellness Amazon podcast. Today we have two amazing guests, and our subject is how to parent as an HSP or parenting an HSP child, or both. And these two ladies are amazing. You have already met Anika, who I will link the Etsy store in our show notes again, who is a creator of amazing printables and astrology natal charts and everything you need for your very special spiritual being. And then we have Jess, who is a voice actress, who is a stunt woman, who is very big in martial arts as well, very talented there, who is a master in psychology, trained in traditional Chinese medicine, and the list goes on and on and on. So we have quite the mix today. Super excited to have both of you here. Welcome to the podcast, y'all. So yeah, let's dive right in. So the first question is, how is the balance in your home? So who is the HSP? Are you an HSP? Is your child an HSP? And how do you know it? Anika.
Yeah, so in our household, I'm for sure an HSP, and my son is an HSP. I am not sure about my husband. He is very rational thinking, and he can be very empathetic, but it's not like he has to be close with someone, but he's pretty straightforward and like he just his feelings, and I wouldn't say he's an HSP. So it's mainly me and our son, and I never knew as a kid because nobody really in my family is an HSP. So I was always feeling like I'm just weird, different, whatever. I had emotions that I couldn't explain myself when I was a little kid. Like I was very sensitive at gatherings, for example, even like with family gatherings where you had to eat and sit down, and I just always felt uncomfortable, especially in the beginning. And I never knew why. Like I never as a kid really thought about it much. And I was very quiet, observant, very sensitive to emotions. I wouldn't understand injustice. Like that, I had a struggle with that. I just couldn't understand why is someone behaving a certain way, like other kids and so on. I never had issues in school or anything. Like I always got along with everybody, but I was kind of like Switzerland. I was very neutral, and I was able to help. Like I saw it immediately when someone struggled, and I always felt for them and always kind of like protected them. So now as an adult, I know those are all HSP signs. And my son, we noticed right away when he was born, because he was, as a baby, super observant, very quiet, like just always watching, and more like a passive kid. He was not like an, hey, here I am, so he was very passive, very, very sensitive to loud noises, to bright lights. Like there was just, I'm in general not a fan of overstimulating kids, but there was just no way to like overstimulate him because it would just not work with him. And yeah, just also very sensitive to other people's emotions. Sensitive in group settings. Like he just doesn't like it to be in larger crowds. He prefers to be more just with a few children and have like more of a one-on-one connection. Also very sensitive and yeah, in love with nature, animals, just having this feel, the sensitivity, like how he touched plants, animals, like even as a very, very young child, like a toddler. He would never ever be rough with an animal or so those little subtle things, that's how we noticed. And also with all the milestones, he was more on a later side. Not that, I mean, I never really tracked his milestones, like, oh, now he is so and so months old. Now he has to know this. I didn't really stress it too much because I just knew everyone is different. And I knew from the beginning too that because he was more sensitive and quiet and observant and not so active, that I need to give him this time. And it's always been the case for him that things took a little longer until he really wanted to pick it up. But once he did, it was like, it was not a progressive thing. It was like, okay, now I speak full sentences, kind of, you know. So yeah. How was it with you, Jess?
It's so funny. I was taking notes as you were talking about it because with my son, I experienced a lot of the same things for him. So I actually heard of the term HSP probably maybe 6, 7 years ago. I came across something and then I did like one of these online tests. A sucker for all of these kinds of personality tests. And mainly also because I had realized the same things in my child. But when you have multiple things going on, for example, we're also bilingual parents. So a lot of time if your child doesn't start speaking early, you don't think of anything because the doctors say, well, they have to go, they get 50% of this vocabulary, 50 here. So some of them are more observant. And then the same thing happened all of a sudden. At first they were like, oh, he's not speaking. And then he just like wouldn't stop full sentences, same thing. But for him, I noticed when he was on the ground, he would look at things like you said, and he was so sensitive to noise. So if and facial expressions, I'm very expressive. So if I say no, that I could see in his face how much more that meant and just the gravitas of like how to say it. And for the longest time, I thought that my mom and I are too, like just before I started the podcast, I had to turn our water cooler off because that noise gives me a lot of anxiety. It's just in the background and I can't unhear it. However, I work at a psychology clinic now. I've been there for about 2.5 years and I test people, for example, for ADHD, and I work with a neuropsychologist. And there are a lot of things that overlap when it comes to that, where at this point, I wouldn't even be sure if it's more for myself, ADHD, than it is HSP, but I'm sure for my son, all the signs I'm seeing, it's that. So before the podcast, I had a little bit of a discussion about that with the psychologist, and we were talking if you are on the verge of not knowing, because I know, Melina, you had talked about you wanted to get tested because you weren't sure, and we're all very sensitive, but it's quite easy to find out, especially if you get testing, because ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder, so it has to do with executive function, versus HSP is a personality trait. So we're just more sensitive to things and just more empathetic and intuitive. And then if you bring astrology into it, all the zodiac signs. So it can get really confusing. So the more we're trying to learn about ourselves, the more you're digging into and trying to figure it out. But for me, it was exactly the same things when I realized it with my son, just how he interacts. Same with the gentleness to animals. I'm like, just pick the cat up. It'll be fine. And it's just so gentle, likes to be alone and just, yeah, I would echo all of the same things that you said, Anika, when it comes to realizing that I noticed early on that my child is highly sensitive.
Yeah. Wow. there's so many similarities that I hear with where we are as a family. And I have two. And it's funny because you both have one boy and I have two girls. And then I see how different they are, but they are still in that same category, but they're expressing it in a totally different manner, where one charges with closeness and physical touch, and the other one charges with room, closing the door, nobody, right? That's amazing. And yes, actually going to have an episode, Jess, with someone who is speaking about her experience with that ADHD diagnosis as a woman later in life, because all of those layers go into that, and how many similarities are there between that and HSP tendencies. They can, yeah, they can really overlap, and also being a lot of times misdiagnosed unless you really get tested by a professional. So that's amazing. I love to hear how there's so much gentleness and empathy going on, because obviously we need more of that in the world. So again, superpower. Um, so how do you think you parent differently for you being an HSP? Or parent differently because your child is an HSP. Like, I think those are two separate things, right? For when you're, as a parent, you're an HSP, you might have to take a little bit of a different parenting route because you need to protect yourself too, and your boundaries and your threshold that you have with certain things. And how do you do that with your kids so they understand you and your needs?
So with us, the number one thing is communication. And the communication, I would say, is just maybe a little bit different. I don't know, because of course, like, I only have one child. I don't have I have no comparison to having a non-HSP child and how parenting would look different. But for me, what I just know, I mean, of course, for me, I would say it's a very positive thing that I am HSP as well, because I can emphasize with him, and I can tune in with that, with that same wavelength. Whereas, like, my parents couldn't do that because they didn't know. So I had to figure everything out myself. So for us, it's really communication, and very, very early on, also communications that you just wouldn't expect to have with like a toddler. Like, it's not that I talk with him like he's an adult, but I do have to explain things to him like in that way sometimes, in a child-friendly manner. Like, I always have to give him reasoning when I say something. Like, I always have to explain to him why we can't do this right now. Or, I mean, I think you should do this probably anyways, but it's just he just would not understand it if I wouldn't do it. Because maybe that's then for him this injustice thing. That's he just wants to know. And routines. It's such a routine child. If we went out of a routine, I had to really like always also prepare him. Like, it's hard for him to abruptly do something different. And it's always been that way. So I always had to kind of like, but I mean, it's life too, right? Sometimes abrupt things happen and you have to quickly adapt to that. So I'm very aware of how important that is. It's just, and when as he gets older, it gets better that he adapts quicker. But I just had to go with the flow of that, so that he's not overwhelmed. Routines and communication I had, so, and a lot of rest. He just thrives of having calm time. But he also loves playing with friends, of course, and having a good time and being silly and he can also be very, very, loud and just playing and all those things. But I just sense that sometimes he also needs this calm time, like, a lot. And he appreciates that. So I just sense it. I notice it immediately in his behavior. I know when he's tired immediately. I can kind of hear it in his voice as well. And sleep has always been also the biggest thing. Like he's always had a very, I don't want to say strict sleep schedule, but just a lot of sleep. I mean, that would just be something that I've always prioritized, always, just so that he never is lacking in that. I just always had the feeling he just really needs it. So we stuck to that. And of course, like no sugar. So with it, not no sugar, but healthy diet, being aware of those type of things. What do I give my kid? How does he grow up? Yeah, and I think it really helped him. So yeah, that's all I really have on mind right now.
What about you, Jess?
It's so interesting because, Elena, you were also talking about how you have two girls, but they're also very different. And Anika and I have boys. So listening to Anika saying how enforcing, well, not really enforcing, but kind of leaning into this gentle side of a boy. So once again, we have something like we're from Germany. So a lot of times we try to keep emotions kind of down. That's kind of how we grew up. You don't really whine much about certain things. And then in general, the stigma of being a boy means you got to be tough, you can't just be soft or whatever. And sometimes it made it difficult at the beginning, especially most of Alex growing up was me as a single mom. So being the mom and the dad, being the soft one and the one that's a little tough. So I am like stricter with certain rules, but what I learned was because of the way he takes things in, same thing, I would not necessarily have to explain certain things, but I noticed it helped, especially things that are repetitive about routines or stuff. Or like, hey, when I'm working on the computer and you need something, just wait a moment or take like certain cues before you come in, because I'm also very sensitive if I hyper focus and you come in. And then as parents, I mean, a lot of times we're like, oh, not right now, you know what I mean? But a child like that is not just, oh, they're so sensitive, like how people might coin it. And you're like, oh, you're babying them. It really is different because you can see in their reaction a lot of times how they get overwhelmed from the stimulus of how you talk to them. So I found a good way now that he's 13 over the years to be strict and be able to say things more stern when they need to be. But most of the time I don't have to because I talk to him, explain things to him, and also assure that I know what he feels and how it might feel. So to talk to him, hey, is everything okay? I know when we're out all day long, it can be overstimulating. So you might, get really tired, like Anika was saying. So talking through those things when you know what it feels like, and this is like another example, but because being so in tune to things, he was telling me lately, like how he can't see things very clearly and in bright lights. And it's like, oh my God, you also have astigmatism probably. Let's go to the optometrist. And then he turned out to be nearsighted too. But a lot of these things, like knowing my child because I'm also more intuitive, and then seeing how he has a lot of these traits too. People might say it's, oh, you're a mom parenting a boy, so he's going to be soft. But HSP is not something you become, as we've like seen from all of us. When our children were born, we could tell when they were little that they're different, and then you can't. Some people that like spanking or are a little tougher, things like that wouldn't even work on a child like that. You probably get a child that will really go into their shell, and that doesn't help. So maybe like the reward system is something that's better, and just communicating and making them understand what they feel is normal, and then you can talk about it. So I feel like communication, same thing as you said, Anika, is a really big thing. Taking time off, reading his cues, the way things are when I plan stuff, but also teaching him to read my cues. And he's really in tune. The way he texts too, he's like, Mom, I hope you're having a good time right now. Is it okay if I can get something from the pantry, just knows to, or he used to when he was little, be more in tune actually when I was stressed, be like, hey, mom, maybe it's a good time we sit on the floor right now and just kind of, he used some word I can't remember, meditate. And I was like, oh, maybe I should listen to this child that sees everything still so open, doesn't have the same pressures and work and all those things that go on, and just trust what he's feeling in the air energy, that he's like, I'm feeling there's stress. Let's sit back and together kind of find this calm point. And if you're not in tune, you won't catch that. And it might look like a weakness, but it's definitely a strength, I feel.
Yeah, one thing I also want to say, because I forgot, because you mentioned it with the tough, having to be tough. I do feel like in our case, that is a negative of me being HSP, of that I can teach him that. Because for me, I'm not representing like the toughness. That's where my husband then comes in, and how important that is, because Adrian is so very HSP, and I want him though as a boy to not like be like tough like in a toxic way, just this, okay, there are things in the world, you have to stand up for yourself, like don't like he it's important to me. So, and that's where I struggle as his mom to teach him that, like, because it's just not innate for me. Like, I mean, I can be tough, but I'm still like, I just, it's just not working for me. So that's where my husband has to always step in and have that role in teaching him those things. So, I mean, kudos for you, to you, that you've had both of these roles. And I know you can represent both of them. So, that's amazing for sure. So,
Appreciate it.
yeah.
Yeah, Jess is the master of flowing and still be action, which literally, because you're Sun Woman, right? And I know we've talked a lot about this, so this is a whole nother podcast, but that talent between flowing and letting go and then taking action again, and that is so hard. Because going from one to the other, they are so opposite. It's really, really tough not to get stuck in one of them. So yeah, kudos to you for being both. And I think, not coming from a single mom, coming from someone where the dad was gone a lot in the past, like a lot. I got stuck in that role for a long time, and I got stuck almost in my masculine energy because you had to be both like all the time, and then, trying to control things. And that also then makes it so much harder for an HSP actually, because you have the mental load is so much more, and the information that's coming at you are the only one who has to filter everything. But it's great when you were talking about how that, I think that's so important, that this being an HSP and being sensitive is a wonderful, beautiful thing also for a boy, right? And it's not weakness, or it's not, like my husband said in like the other episode we had with him, it's not something that's not masculine. You can use it to your advantage, because usually that also means you understand people a little bit better. You have empathy. You can sit with people. You're a great listener. And those things feed you, again, information that then you can utilize to be strong for that person. So it's just, if someone doesn't have any of those traits, it's harder for them to be strong for the right reasons and to do the right things.
I
So
do
I
have
think
a
you're,
question
yeah.
for Jess. Because we just had this podcast episode about, feminine energy, masculine, like the balance. So how did it feel for you, or how does it feel for you now that you have a partner and you're not really like single mom anymore? Did you feel a relief to have someone also like stepping into a role that you had to represent for like a long time?
It's interesting because my partner's parenting style, even with his own daughter, is very different. So he's very caring. He thinks of a lot of things. He'll like leave like notes or bring presents. So usually if there's like, let's say chocolate or chips somewhere, my son's first thought is, "Oh my God, he got it for me." And like one time on like Easter, there was a basket, and I put the Easter basket out, and he thought that my partner got it for him because that's his love language. He's not very lovey and like with children, and they don't like go out and play baseball or go fishing or anything. It's like a mutual understanding. We care for each other. So I still have these two roles, but support at home to just be one family. But I am still the main parent. So it's so interesting because the flowing, basically what both of you saying between the feminine and masculine, what learning over time is taking a beat between the things, maybe just pausing and stepping away, and then I can transition easily, but I can get stuck in one like very much. I can just go on and on if it's just talking or in my emotions or about things. But as soon as I step away and just give it a beat, it can change. So I think that's the main thing. But Anika, you were also, talking about like a soft or strong or masculine child. What I do love is that, children don't learn from us telling them how to do things, but they act the way we do. And what I love is that Alex like sees that my son sees that my partner like opens the door and carries things. So when we go somewhere, my son will like, when it's just him and I, open my door and he wants to carry things. So he takes on that side. But what we probably have to be careful with is that sweet, sensitive side doesn't get taken advantage of. Like people see it and then it might get taken advantage of, which I don't know about you two, but I know when I was younger, that was something for me where people knew if they wanted something, needed something, or needed to talk, everybody would always come to me or ask for stuff, or hey, do you have this, or can I have your Barbie? And to make sure that over and over, kind of teaching what to look out for when you're maybe just being taken advantage of. But we all know our parents tell us one thing and we still sometimes try it, but all we can do is try. And I'm hearing a lot of those things that we're being so aware of how we parent to try to set our children up to be decent humans that also deal with things like being very sensitive in a world that's really loud.
Yeah. And I think just the fact alone that all three of us here are HSPs, raising HSP children, they already know, they see how life is. It's not alien to them, right? They have a sensitive person role model, kind of. So they know how life goes, how's the default, what are the hurdles maybe. So they are not, because that's what I feel when Anika said, and me too, and I don't know about you, Jess, we weren't raised with HSP parents. So as a highly sensitive person going out in the world and not having any of those touch points was, I think that was the biggest hurdle of my life, because there's so much roughness out in the world that was just, now thinking I'm not normal, why can I not handle this? Why am I so overly overwhelmed all the time? And why am I so depleted? Whereas when our children grow up with us, they're like, oh yeah, no, that's totally normal. Yeah. It's a part of our world, kind of, so I think that's a huge advantage for all of us, that we are doing the things we do. And like you said, it's not what we tell them. Yes, that too, that can help too, but they see us and they see how we handle life as HSPs. So they already have that exposure and know that that's a normal thing. That's okay. And this is how my mom deals with it. And I don't know, maybe, to be speaking in practical terms, maybe my mom meditates, maybe she does yoga, maybe she has noise canceling headphones, maybe she says no to things a lot, and that's okay. Whereas growing up, that was never an option. I never saw any of that. So I
It's
think we're,
interesting that you say that because I did grow up with my mom, who's a single mom of three, and she is a HSP, but she didn't know. So or for her to grow up, especially, she was born in the mid 60s, and then with like a mom that, in Germany post World War II and all of those things. So they were very like strict. And so she was always as the youngest, kind of the rebel, because she just felt so differently. Everything was more intense. And I actually told her as an adult a few years ago, Mom, I think this is what's happening, and I'm pretty sure you have it too. And I didn't realize for the longest, when my mom was overstimulated and all the things were going on, a lot of things, I felt like I needed to balance them out. So I feel like I couldn't really understand that I was sensitive for the longest, because I was more in my masculine side, and I didn't know what it was that was overwhelming me, or when I needed breaks, or why crowds would drive me crazy, because I was just trying to, also as a Libra, balance things out a little bit, the oldest of three. So it was really nice to talk to my mom as an adult, and then she realizes, as the generation she has it, I probably have that too, with may or may not ADHD, and then my son also with HSP. So she now tries to be more on the very gentle side, where it's like, you still got to be a little tough, but grandparents will be grandparents.
yep.
But it is interesting for somebody from that era not realizing that's a thing. And then our generation, especially like millennials, that are way more open to explore and try to find out what we are, that we can educate our parents and then say, this is what I learned, and this is how I reacted when you were stressed. And I don't want my child to feel that. Still will for some part, but you can work on some of those things, since
Yeah.
she was the one.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
do believe too that HSP, they like, yes, it's called highly sensitive person, but we can also be like if there is a dire situation, or like for example, Jess, we haven't mentioned you're also a veteran. So those situations of where you have to function and you have to be clear-headed, we can totally do it, right? Like I think we would all agree that in terms of toughness, that is there, like, because I mean, yeah, so there's a lot of noise in the world, but when you really think about it, it's like pretty peaceful compared to other areas in time. So I think also with our parents and grandparents, they had more of that threat still in their field of, you know, being in dire situations, having to go through war or shortages of food supply and all of those things. I do believe that we can still, like, doesn't mean that we're like weak or anything like that, right? Like it's just, I just wonder, like, how do you determine it to that people don't think, oh, they're like weak people, or you know what I mean? So kids tend to, they just sense it, what someone else needs, which is then a blessing too. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that there's finally, like you said, in our generation, and maybe a little bit before that, starting to do studies on these things and actually proving that, hey, we just found out that our brains are not made for this information flow of the modern world at all. We can't, it's too much. We can't do that. That's not how this is supposed to work. And then just proving that and connecting it with some things and normalizing things, normalizing downtime, normalizing saying no, normalizing being an introvert or extrovert or whatever really makes you more comfortable or happy, or just lets you live in a normal zone where it's not always fight or flight or overstimulated or whatever it is, fill in the blank. Now, when you look at family or friends, relatives, whatever, it doesn't have to be, it can be the partner, it can be, the other parent, it can be grandma, grandpa, aunts and uncles, whatever. When you see someone who's where you know they're not an HSP, they're not in that realm, they might not understand this really well, and how they what is the correct word for that? How they interact with your child, right? Where you ever get into situations where you're like, okay, this is, I need to like intervene or help or communicate or do whatever, because they're not on one level. They don't understand each other. Did you ever come across something like that?
Yes, for sure. Not with like first grade family, like my mom, for example, like his grandma, totally understanding. Um, but with most of my family, there's just not an awareness. So what I've noticed, there would be sometimes, things like, oh, he's so quiet, or you have to do this more, or you have to do this, like you have to stimulate your child, basically, is what they were telling me. But I just don't believe in, I don't believe in overstimulate. Like, I don't think a healthy child has to be like crazy and like, having the cake everywhere and all those kind of things. So, yeah, for sure. I just, because I knew whatever I'm going to tell them right now to explain it, they just wouldn't really understand, because they wouldn't even understand HSP. Like, as soon as I would mention that, I know that it would be, because they think I'm a crazy hippie, Like, it's kind of, they're very, I don't know I don't want to degrade anybody or anything. It's just more like simple, in terms of just
Mm-hmm.
straightforward life, normal. Like, they don't really think out of the box in those realms that we're talking about right now. So I would just be like, yeah, yeah, okay. I would honestly kind of ignore it, because I just knew better, and I knew where they were coming from. So maybe like saying, hey, I appreciate your input, but yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be it. How was it with you, Jess?
Yeah, we have a really small circle. Like my family is very small already. So like my grandma and aunts and them, they're all in Germany. So it's really just my mom and my sister, and then my brother doesn't live here in the state either. But sometimes it comes across, especially because he can be kind of quiet or just be with one of the cousins or something happens, and then we're in the situation where it's like, well, I guess he can't do anything wrong. It's like, well, he didn't do anything. And it's just because he doesn't play rough. But sometimes if he has to defend himself, then it's really difficult, even with other children, maybe how to deal with it. He wouldn't throw the first punch, but you push him like long enough, like he wants to defend himself maybe too. But then, of course, he would be the one to get in trouble, because usually the kids that don't usually get in trouble are the ones that get caught doing something, which did happen at school like a long years and years ago, before he like finally he like, you're such a and didn't even like say anything. He really kept it together. Meanwhile, the other kid was throwing stuff at him, and I had to sign a statement that he almost said a bad word. And
That's
so
crazy.
then it comes really to the explaining, how do you express your emotions and how do you deal with when other people try to push your buttons. I don't know about you two, but I know, because being intuitive and sometimes kind of quiet, more understanding of things, people sometimes don't think it's real and they try to find your buttons. I've been in relationships like that in the past too, and they're like, oh, there has to be a button that will. And then they just keep on pushing it because they just want to see what maybe the real side is, but that's not the real side. You're just poking a bear that just wants to be chill. So I don't know how it is for people that are not as aware and how they deal with the sensitivities, but I can see it very well. And that's why my circle is quite small, because I choose the people to be around the people that understand me, that I can understand, that are supportive in that way, and don't try to push buttons unnecessarily just to see what happens.
Absolutely. Same here. Same here. Also with what you said in school and all those things. That's one thing too, I have to say, you have to be very aware of with HSP kids, is they are just so like lovely, really. Like they just cannot imagine, really. I know that with your son it's the same, that to do harm to others. And other kids, there's always going to be kids or adults, right? It's just in our world that they they just want to do that. They just want to explore that. And for them, like we also always said, never throw the first punch, right? Like there's other ways to solve conflict, but you have to always have to stand your ground. You have to always stand your ground for yourself or also for others where you see they need that. So I have the feeling with our son, we just had to make an extra effort to communicate that to him and that he understands it, like how much he has our back with that as well. And we told him too, people see, like they try to find weaknesses in you, and with him it's empathy and just always wanting to be nice and calm. And then like you said, they're gonna poke and they're gonna try to get something out of you. Just don't fall for it and don't really. I mean, it's not that like, I mean, we kind of said don't really show like your weaknesses. Like you have to have strong body posture with kids like that because they see it. You guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's also interesting because you have the youngest of us, and then my son just turned 13, and then Melina, your girls are already a little bit older, so you're dealing with elementary school, and I'm in the middle school phase, and you're in the high school phase. Like talking about this early, Anika can start even earlier to find ways to do it, which I find really difficult even as an adult sometimes. Like, how do you just deal with when people are trying to pop in? Kids just will be kids and they get bored. So now we're in the stage of the hormones like coming out. So I'm really curious for Melina, especially two girls, and they're both a little bit different. When did you notice those HSP traits and how they came out in school and how they over the time dealt with it and now deal with it? It's interesting to see as they like grown, did they grow out of some of it or learn how to deal with it?
I'm very grateful that, I have the traits that I have because I can help them overcome those things because absolutely. And interestingly, they both had different struggles with being an HSP. So my oldest, she would be the one coming home from school completely depleted because it was just so much. And to this day, we have a really good connection and they tell me everything. I'm so grateful for that. But also it goes both ways. Like we have family talks every night. We are super honest about what we're experiencing throughout the day. And then she will, when I pick her up from school, which high school is pretty early, there is a 3 to 4 hours later, she will tell me, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, this thing happened. It's something really big, especially for her. It's a very, very big thing. And it took that long to process for her all the other stuff during the day until that came back in her mind, and now she's processing it out loud with me. So now I can help her through that, but it took that long. And sometimes I look at her and go, and you didn't tell me that in the car? And she's like, no, I forgot, because it was number 15 on the list of things she had to process. So she still needs that. I come home, I put my headphones in, and I just need like an hour of nothing before she even starts her homework, because she needs that. And when she's home and I'm home and nobody else is home, you could hear a pin drop in our house. There's nothing. The other one will come home and babble immediately, is not depleted, but you can tell by the way she talks, she absorbs every emotion from everybody else on the lunch table, and then all the trauma that's there, and all the sadness, and all what they're going through as a teenager. It's hard, She absorbs all of this and then tells me sometimes there's tears, there's a lot of empathy, and they are all her friends are more important than anything else. Like, how can I help this person? How can I solve this? And what am I going to do with this? Even when she gets hurt in the process because somebody needs to project their negativity on her or whatever, or throw her under the bus to look better, because, you know, we all, right, have done this before, maybe in our life once or twice, I don't know, but some people do that more than others. She will find, why is this person doing this and how can I help them? There's never, it's not that she doesn't get mad, but she always tries to, it's almost like she needs to go into the field of psychology, because she starts digging, right? She starts digging of, well, but what's the underlying reason for the person to do that to me? It's this thing, you know, and it's different discussions with both of them, and they handle those things differently. But the overwhelm of the empathy is, even with animals, it's still there. When there were babies, it was the easy things like loud noises, overstimulation, too many things happening at once, too many colors. People, people that are very like energetic and bubbly and loud. Nope, no. Usually, a lot of time, men that were really quiet and reserved, eh, 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 total strangers, total strangers, but they love that energy. They love that, oh yeah, this person is just not overthinking. I want to be with that person, you know? And then we've had people feeling hurt about that. Why can this people hold the baby, but I can't hold the baby? Well, it's just your energy is just too much. It's not you. It's just they cannot process that right now.
But that's what animals too, if you think about it. Like, I wonder that what you just said made me wonder if that is one of the big differences also between cat people and dog people a little bit sometimes, because it'll differ. Because, like you also said, both your children are, but they're one is more the quiet, introspective processing internally, then coming out, and the other one just blasts. For example, I love animals, and if I go somewhere and somebody has a dog and it sits quietly, I want to pet it. But if I go somewhere and someone has a dog and it runs right up to me, wants to lick it, do all this stuff, I immediately, it's like I can feel my energy scatter. That has so much chaotic energy and so wild and like invasion of personal space that in the first moment, if that person doesn't know me, they probably think, oh my God, what a terrible person. She doesn't like dogs. I was like, no, it just what happens to me when this animal wildly jumps up and just gets me wet and comes to my legs and all this. I don't like it, versus where a cat will just chill in the corner and they're like sponges of absorbing energy. So when you come home and even you bring energy, then they're like, let me have some of that extra energy that you brought home. Versus if we have the dog, I come home, I'm overloaded, I need quiet. And then this thing, this little being needs to expend their extra energy onto you. So I'm sure there are tons of super empathetic people have dogs, but they probably makes me wonder. This is like the research sciencey side of me. Same with your daughter, the curiosity, it has to do with like the way we reason. So she probably has like a high like fluid reasoning IQ. I would also assume on that quotient. You always trying to think of all of the things, but it makes me think the difference between cat and dog.
And it's so funny that you say that, because we just had that talk a couple of days ago where the one who needs longer to process and who needs a lot of quiet time, total cat person. She always says, I like cats more than dogs. And she says, I don't like little dogs because they're just too hyper. I like those bigger, calmer dogs. And then the other one, any animal, it doesn't matter, it could be a ferret, she's like, yeah, that's fine, just give it to me, you know, like she needs, as long as she can touch it, cool, we're cool. It could be a goldfish, if she can touch it, we're good, right? And the funny thing is, because you were asking about, you know, there, that was really hard for us when we had our second child. We needed to understand that they're both different individuals born with their personalities, and they do not work with the same parenting style. That is just the hardest thing that we had to learn. One child is quiet and introverted, and you don't even have to say anything. You just look at her, and she goes, never mind, not going to touch it. And then you have a tornado who needs more attention, also more touching. This is the thing, needs more everything from you, but is also very energetic. Now we had to completely rethink our parenting style because what we did with the number one didn't work with number two. Looking at number two would be like, what are you looking at? I'm touching it. What are you looking at? You know, why? So we had to do that. And I'm an HSP and my husband is not. So now when they get older, I had to teach him how to be more active listening and empathetic, and always tell him, if you do not listen to the small stuff now, like when they were little, they're not going to tell you the big stuff when they're bigger. You have to pretend that it's really interesting, that story that she's telling you, even though she's talking about a blade of grass. I don't care, but you need to listen to her. And he did that, and it made a world of a difference. And we do this even today, because like you said, they get older, different challenges are coming up, you know. We still have to learn and to grow with them in our parenting style. And we have a lot of one-on-one meetings before we do parent meeting. So we prep each other because like Anika, what you said too, I'm sometimes too much on the soft side, not in terms of soft with them, but teaching them too much softness, if that's a thing. And I think especially for girls that can be a thing. And my husband is more like, no, they're going to stand up for yourself. You are going to stand up for yourself. I understand that this is hard, but this is where you need to have the boundary. And I'm with them in that, oh, but this poor no, it is not your baggage to carry that they have issues with someone or trauma. That doesn't mean that they can treat you like this. And
Totally.
then I go, oh, yeah.
Same
Yep.
here. Those boundaries, they need to learn those boundaries. And also what I wanted to say is, I don't know how it was with you guys, especially like during pregnancy and then, when they were little, but I never read all those books that you're supposed to read because I've always been, and maybe this is an HSP thing. I bet it is, but I've always been a very intuitive parent. I just went with just like what you just mentioned, right? Like you just felt you need different parenting styles and then you communicate it. And same here, like we never went with a plan, kind of, like whatever is in a book. There were so many things that doctors even like told me, you have to do this, that way, that way. And I was, no. I mean, not that I don't believe, I mean, of course, like
Mm-hmm.
it was more like for development. So no, I just know my child needs this. Like this is so important, and I tell this so many people whenever this comes up, or they are like friends are pregnant or whatever. Do you have a good tip? And I always say, don't read all those books, or if you do read them, just don't take it, too seriously. Be like intuitive. You just need to hone into that feeling of what your child needs. You and your partner know the best what your child needs. If you really like hone into that feelings.
That's so interesting because it really goes into what Melina was saying. And I really like that because you can't, it's this, I think it comes from the saying, and I say this to people a lot when you're like, you're always told, treat other people the way you want to be, people you want to be treated. Well, that comes from be like a kind, decent person. But I think people read too much into it and they might do things differently or behave differently or feel differently. So if I like to share all of my things, but the other person can't even take all of it. And I was like, well, that's like how I share stuff with love languages, which could be your partner or your child or other people. That's where being a chameleon kind of comes in. When you step in, you know, this person processes this way and this processes that way, but it's so much harder as a parent. Like, Melina, when you were saying that that's one of the reasons I knew I didn't want to get pregnant a second time, because I knew the energy that I also had and what I could give and expend, I felt like I wouldn't be able to give to another being. And I knew that because my son, like your older daughter, is more this quiet, intuitive person, that if I brought another child into life, probably would be the tornado. And that empathy side towards, like, oh my God, how my son feel all of a sudden all of this, and where does my energy go? And it seemed so much that for a long time I was really like nervous. For me, that was really difficult to make sure I date somebody who I knew already either had a child, because that's fine. For me, there's another child that already has all their values, has all the things there that we're living together, versus birthing another child and just molding it from the ground and taking up all of those senses, like talking about with the dogs. Like, if I already have the energy for this one child and a partner and the things I do, I knew I wouldn't be able to. But I mean, you have to. When you have to, you will, but you're probably more exhausted. But as they get older, of course, you also love your children very much. You couldn't see your life probably without that second one. So obviously, yeah, if I had a second, it would be different. But I knew for me how my senses are, and I knew how my child was. I always said, I know that I don't want to have another one. I don't have it in me. Even the listening portion, what you said, um, kids, especially when they become teenagers, blah, 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 every little thing. And like, look at this TikTok, and it's like a 5-minute one. I was like, just show me like the most important one of the things. I don't need to
The
see
highlights.
the whole thing. So I try, because I know my mom a lot of times is distracted, and then I'd be like, oh, she doesn't like listen to the thing. Like later on she did, like when we got older, but all the not interesting stuff, it's so hard. I really have to force myself to just, all right, just watch it. It's just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same,
Summarize it, please. I know.
same here with the second child. I love the idea of having a big family, you know, and having a lot of children, but it was never in our cards because we're completely by ourselves. We've moved a lot from continent to continent, so family is very far away, and also there's just no support really from family, so we've just always done it all by ourselves. So yeah, and my family is just on the other side of the world, so that's why we decided no second one. But I do love the idea. Like, I love, you know, what Melina has, and it's absolutely lovely that you guys rocked it, and you guys are rocking it. So
That's why I said that, because I find it amazing. Like, I know the two of them, and like, so come into the family and sitting with you at the table and seeing how you do like process the day together and what you're grateful for. It's so beautiful. And that's why I said, once you're there, it's one thing, but getting there, it's not easy to get there. And I love it. I have a stepdaughter. She's 16. So she was like 10 when I met her, and this cute little girl in her overalls, like carrying like snails, and she's so passionate about it. And now she's like in high school and wrestling and like almost adult, about to drive. So I love her. We're like one family. So that's what I love, that we could come together and be a family, and also learn how we work. We, you know, with her being part-time here and part-time at her mom's house. So you can see for everyone, sometimes adjusting is one thing. So communication there is really big for me too. Like when some of those routinely things or how things are organized are not how they usually are, it like interferes with my energetic level and how my day goes. So I like sit with her. I was like, hey, when I'm like, oh, this goes here, like don't like take any offense to it. I just need certain things. So we'll just put the things in the dishwasher. So if you could do that, that would be really nice. And she does, and we all get along really well, and everybody seems to be so in tune of what everyone needs. And it's just also, as you can hear, there are two teenagers upstairs, but you don't hear them at all. Really quiet, nice household.
Yeah. And I think that's too, HSPs together, like obviously we all have that, and we still raised children that respect us. They respect others. They respect authority. And I think that also comes from that we at a certain degree held our own boundaries too. Okay, here's a story while I'm saying this. I went to the grocery store, I think it was maybe 2 days ago, and there was a mom with two, maybe 8-year-olds. They were screaming from the top of their lungs. They were throwing stuff through the aisle. I mean, the most misbehaved children I have seen in a long time. And I look at the mom and she's just completely oblivious. She's just reading labels and putting stuff in her cart. And I thought, that is not an HSP mom.
Mm-mm.
That is not an HSP mom. I would not be capable to just zone this out completely and just let them do whatever they needed to do. I would be completely, I would need 24 hours after that to recuperate from that grocery shopping trip, right? So that's where I think yes, we are gentle, but we do have a lot of boundaries. I don't even call myself gentle when it comes to parenting, because that's a whole nother stigma. I definitely don't. And I'm not saying you have to be rough or violent or whatever. The only thing you have to do is consequences. There
Oh,
has to be some sort of consequence, right? And that's how we got our girls to also be very, they're respectful because they know what's right and what's wrong, but they also know that when they screw up, there is going to be a consequence, right?
same.
So,
I wonder,
yeah.
I wonder if HSP parents are just more stricter, like the consequences, boundaries, because we are so aware of that and we just can't deal with it. We just can't deal with the chaos. And we don't want to deal with chaos. And we know that how important it is to set the right stones from the beginning, so that, because at some point when it's over, like when they're 8 years old and you still have not like fixed it, they're gonna walk on you. I mean, we all know that, right? They're gonna walk on you. And
Yeah.
we couldn't take it. I couldn't
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah, that developmental phase is so important. Even looking back to think, I mean, they have these parts in their life where certain areas are just become more fixed. So those first 5 years of their lives are the most important. And then you go into that another preteen and then obviously the teens, but most of those things they happen before, like how do you react? And the strictness of things and rules and all of those things. And it seems like, well, there's so little, it'll be fine. Well, no, this is when they learn what they can get away with, what they can't get away with. And if you then try to change it later, it's like for us, like if you're all of a sudden with someone and then they're like, oh, I didn't realize you did this. And now they want you to change who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You already feel like, no, I've been doing this my whole life, whether or not it's a good habit or a bad one, a good trait or a bad one. But this is you and you've been fine that way. And it's crazy that it starts so little.
Did you guys ever have issues in restaurants with your children? Me neither. I mean, it just wasn't an option. Let's say that. Or I would be the parent. I would take my child. I would go somewhere else and then really have like a serious, serious conversation. And hey, not like that. Uh-uh.
I did. My mom once was a shock because she didn't know it was happening. Because they have fits and tantrums. I mean, that's normal, like that they can have it. And I was like, I'll be right back. And the way I left, it must have probably looked like, oh my God, what is she about to do to this child? But no, I was like, all right, let's just, we're here, blah, 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 whatever, whatever. And we're going to act right. All right, let's just, and then go back and then it's fine. Yeah, but that clean cut, go and come back in. But it really has to do a lot with that intuitiveness, awareness, knowing your child, knowing yourself. Like maybe all of the noise is what makes them that way. Maybe they've always gotten attention. Now you're sitting for 5 minutes. They don't know what to do without the attention. Just so many things. And it is more difficult to parent specifically to the needs of your child. Because if you think about it, at that whatever age we are until we were at least like 18, we were kind of children and teens. and then trying to navigate life with as much of it as you can put in. How exhausting it might be as a parent sometimes, you just really hope you do the best that you can to set them up, because you can't get that time back and you just can't really change it much later. Yeah, we need a lot of time to recharge as HSPs then too. So if another parent can still be intuitive or just kind of know their child, and they might not need all that recharge time. But as a parent, as HSP, you need time to recover, you need quiet time. You probably don't get it as much as you should. So it takes much energy, and it's really wonderful to have a community of people to know, all right, you're not alone in all of this, and we're all in different stages with our life, or how we live, where we live, our children's age. I really find this kind of community and friendship helps through good and the bad. You're like, oh, I'm struggling with this, and you're maybe thinking about 1,000 reasons, and then one of your friends is like, oh, well, I've had this, or have you thought about that? And you're like, oh my God. It does take a village, even if you feel like you are whooping it all by yourself. So if you can find a community or have just one or two close friends that understand you, it really makes a big difference.
Yeah. And since we're already living against our Homo sapiens grain, so to speak, right? We're not living in a tribe. It takes a village to raise a child. Well, we don't have a village. It's all on us. You really are not doing yourself a favor or your child a favor if you do not have those boundaries and if you do not have these open communication channels with them. Because what I have read with studies, and it makes total sense, HSPs or anyone who is extremely sensitive or easily overwhelmed, or maybe even on that ADHD spectrum where those things are also coming with or whatever, if you never have an outlet and you don't know how to handle it, it can cause things like anxiety, depression. A lot of people go and take substances for that to get out of that. It's either alcohol or weed or the other things, because you need to turn it off. You need to turn it off. You need to go into another world. And of course, those are the extremes. But that is a danger that can occur if someone is completely lost in that world and doesn't know how to handle it and doesn't get that and that can be for the parent. And I have been there, when you just feel so overwhelmed where you then get depressed or anxious or whatnot, and you go to the doctor and they give you medication, and then later you find out, well, actually, that's not the solution. But not doing those things that overstimulate me, that's the solution. Okay. And it can have, your kid can go down that path as well when they're older. So I think, what you said, it is hard. And it might sometimes be controversial, and you might not make everybody happy, but having that parenting style that matches you and the child and has boundaries is absolutely essential for a healthy later grown up and a healthy mom. And a healthy mom is essential for a healthy grown up, because you cannot pour out of an empty cup. I mean, we've probably all heard that, but it's hard to really internalize it sometimes. So, what are your practical tips? What is like your number one suggestion for either, doesn't matter, being an HSP parent or parenting an HSP child?
Just one?
If you have more, go for it.
All those things that I mentioned earlier, like I mean, just being intuitive and having really great communication. And I mean, really also being open with the child, that how amazing it is what traits they have, how amazing it is that they're so empathetic and intuitive, and that they have this awareness of like very, very subtle things, details, right? Attention to detail. And that's like a superpower. I mean, really encourage that how valuable this is, but also let them know that that they cannot let people walk on them or take advantage of them. They, that they have their boundaries, like those things, boundaries, communication, and intuition would be my.
So communication, definitely, especially when needed. But I think no matter if you're the HSP parent, a regular child, or your regular parent to HSP, or both HSP, when there's overwhelm for yourself or the child or both, to realize it, really just take a moment to think what's going on right now, what's causing it. Is it like my noise? Is it their noise? Is something else happening? And then going from that, because I know for myself and for my son, if we just keep trotting through, everything just feels so much more overwhelming and intense. So if one of us catches it, like he used to when he was little, saw me remote working, like, all right, looks like you need to take a beat. And I'll do the same. I was like, whoa, all right, let's just wait for a second. And then if it is something newer, to communicate about it. All right, is this like a feeling you've had before? Like, do you want to talk about it? And if not, that's fine too. But I think taking that beat when you're overwhelmed, being intuitive in that, what do you need? What does the child need? And then going from there and communicating as needed, just to have that system so that they know, oh, when I feel that, I just like take a quick break, then they know what to do. Or if I feel that, I drink water, and that kind of helps. So just knowing what to do and being in tune to what you're feeling. Yeah, working on.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Communication, trying to, like what you said, Jess, trying to make sense of what is going on in their body and in their brain and trying to express that, because it can be really hard. Um, I would add to that, what we now see with them being teenagers is spend time with them. Even if it is you cramming it into your day, it doesn't have to be 2 hours or whatever. When you have more than one kid, I would recommend one-on-one time. Like we do like dates. Like I have a, mommy child number one date, mommy child number two date. Daddy has a date with child number one, child number two. So we get to go in their brains a little bit more and be very, very honest in your communication every day, where you let them in your world so they can also see how you process things. And that doesn't mean you load your problems of the day on them, but you do share. And then I want to see what they say about it. How do they think about my processing? And it helps them to find words for my stuff, and that helps them to find the words for their stuff. So I really think that our kids are so communicative and honest with us because we do that too. We talk about things like PTSD, or hey, there's this person who has depression in our family, or there's this person that had something like this, and then we go through this, and that's heavy stuff. But now they know, okay, that is something that mom shared with me really honestly, or dad or whatever. I can also come and bring my problems to the table because we
That
do
brings
that.
the question to me when you said that, because when I was talking about 50%, the stepdaughter here and there, sometimes, she'd come and she'll like adjust, and then maybe she's allowed to do different things from like her mom and dad than my son's allowed to do. And it's just because you also have two girls that are very different from each other. One thing was when we're like, hey, maybe sometimes she'll be a little more rowdy. She's like adjusting, or she does certain things, but she doesn't get to be here all the time, and then she's at home and they have different routines. So sometimes if she does something, you don't have to take everything with it, but just acknowledge that she might be going through some things, like switching
Mhm.
the households and kind of being aware. But this is where I walk on like this line where I have to make sure I don't teach him to then just let like another person walk over because he's so empathetic. Oh, she might be feeling that, so I can't say what I want to say. So just be aware, okay, give a little grace, but still have boundaries. There we again with the boundaries. So I'm curious, when you, with your child, let one child do something that maybe for the other one you don't, do you use that one-on-one time to kind of explain, hey, for you, I let you kind of do that, but your sister sometimes needs the.
Yeah, we do that. I call them one-on-one meetings, actually. And depending if dad's home or not. where I will, because again, for me as the mom of both, I'm on the outside and I can see what's happening very clearly, and they cannot because they're tangled into their problems and their stuff. And at the end of the day, both of them don't feel appreciated and loved. And then I go in and explain it to them why. And most of the time, because they also have different love languages, right? One is doing acts of service, the other one wants gifts and time. That doesn't sometimes mix. And then I have to go in and say, you need to see it from this person's perspective. She did this, this, and this, and this for you, and you didn't appreciate it. Now she doesn't feel appreciated. Now her love tank is empty. Now she doesn't want to cuddle with you because she has nothing to give. And I go to the other one and I explain the same thing in reverse.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. So
Yeah.
important because that's how they're going to be able to also know with their friends how to deal and when they're in relationships one day and recognize some of these things. Yeah, because we didn't when we were younger probably think we just intuitively were attuned to everybody else, but not know why and how. So it's a really beautiful gift. If you, it's one of these things, even though we said you learn by seeing, but some things from repetitive hearing you will acknowledge this. Maybe it doesn't make sense today, but in 10 years, oh my God, my mom used to say that all the time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I give you a good example of when we had a situation, a very big one and a very long one, actually, where again, dad's not an HSP and they shared a bedroom for the longest time. And he always said, they're going to share a bedroom until blah, blah, blah. And I had to do that with my brother. And I'm like, okay, just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean it's right. Right. And, which is funny because my husband hates that saying, but here we are, you're living it, you know? And I said, they're so different with their sleep pattern and everything. It would be better if we would separate them. No, 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 no. Well, finally we did. Okay. So they both sleep in separate rooms now. They have their own bedroom. And it was the best thing we've ever done for both of them, even though one didn't want it because she's the one that's like, I need my sister. I need to be close to someone. I can't be alone in my room. And the other one's like, oh my God, my own room. This is like the best thing ever. Yes, please. So one, the clingier one found herself a little bit more and can now enjoy her own company, which is such an important skill. And the other one now has that room where she can safely process everything and she can dim the light and she can just be quiet. And she has we bought her one of those lights that, does like the whole room looks like the ocean and things like that. So she's really, really in she makes her room to a sensory processing space, almost like. And since that day, they're closer, even physically. They cuddle more, they hug more, they say, I love you more. That separation brought them closer together because now the being close is on a voluntary basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I can choose. I don't have to anymore.
Very.
So
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah. It's adorable when I catch them. Most of the time it's in the oldest room, and I go in and they're both just like typical teenage girls on their bellies, the feet are dangling up in the air and they're watching some YouTube thing, like usually like Sam and Kobe, they love Sam and Kobe, the ghost hunters, and they're giggling and I'm like, oh, this is so cute. And then I want to take a picture. Yeah, those are then the moments when okay, we're doing something right.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. I hope this was helpful for our listeners. I'm sure it was because this is definitely not an easy thing to do, which parenting is never easy to do, no matter if there is a highly sensitive person involved or not. But I think it just makes it even a little bit more challenging with all the stimuli we have coming in anyway and all the processing stuff. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy days and being here. with me. And yes, I forgot, and I'm glad Anika reminded me to add to the long list of Jess's talents that, yes, she's also a veteran. And thank you for your service, Jess.
Thank you for your service, Jess.
You guys are so sweet.
Power woman.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Yes.
Making me blush. Okay. I love it.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed. You can give it a thumbs up, you can give it a review, you can share it with somebody you think might resonate with this. Have a great day. See you next time.